For centuries, many people have assumed that there's only one Messiah in Jewish tradition, but this is far from the truth. Tucked deep inside Talmudic, Kabbalistic, and apocalyptic writings is the mention of not one, but two Messiahs: Messiah ben David and Messiah ben Joseph. The first Messiah is well known to be the kingly redeemer from the line of David. However, the second one remains a mystery, an unexplainable figure hidden in the shadows of theology and time. His name is Messiah ben Joseph. Also known as the suffering servant, Messiah ben Joseph's story has been hidden for ages. Little wonder why, as the truth might shake you to your bones. According to ancient prophecy, Ben Joseph was meant to appear first, lead a war against evil, and die in battle. His death was not to be portrayed as a failure, but as a sacrifice. In return, this sacrifice would atone for the people and make way for the triumph of the second Messiah. But if such a noble goal was taught in the past, how come we've never heard of him? Because if Messiah ben Joseph existed, he would have already come, and his story was buried intentionally. If you wonder why anyone would bury such a story, think about this. The idea of a dying Messiah shakes the foundation of what most religions have built. If Ben Joseph really lived and died before the coming of Jesus, then it challenges both traditional Judaism and mainstream Christianity. This would mean that messianic redemption didn't begin with the Gospels. Instead, it began much earlier, with a forgotten figure whose death prepared the ground for everything that followed. So, was he erased to protect the simplicity of one Messiah theology? Or was his death too politically dangerous to remember? This is the story of the first Messiah, Ben Joseph. But before we delve into the full-blown story of Ben Joseph, let's take a moment to understand where it all began. Ancient Judaism. In modern Judaism, the Messiah is often imagined as a powerful king, a descendant of David who restores Israel's glory. But ancient sources suggest that this vision was only half the picture. When you read ancient texts like the Talmud, the Zohar, and writings of early rabbis, they clearly describe two messiahs. One is Messiah ben David, also known as the conquering ruler. And the other is Messiah ben Joseph, a warrior who comes first, fights the enemies of Israel, and dies before the final redemption. This is no fake theology. Even prominent scholars like Saadia Gaon and Nachmanides treated the two Messiah doctrine as a legitimate tradition. Ben Joseph was meant to die, and his death is no accident. It's a requirement, seen as a mystical sacrifice that clears the path for Ben David to rise. But somewhere along the way, this dual structure was lost, or do we say erased? Yes, you heard that right. Thankfully, some texts exist to ensure that this history is not fully lost to rewritten theology. Although most modern readers have never heard of Messiah ben Joseph, the Jewish tradition persisted through ancient texts. Let's look at some instances. In Talmudic commentary, Ben Joseph is mourned like a fallen hero. In Midrashim, he fights in the final war, but doesn't survive it. And in the Zohar, he's seen as the mystical bridge between darkness and redemption. Although each text seems to convey Ben Joseph's mission differently, the story is always the same. Messiah ben Joseph appears before Ben David, suffers first, and dies in battle against Gog and Magog. Without him, there was no way redemption could begin. He died so that the second Messiah could rise. Now, what is the story of this suffering servant? Unlike Messiah ben David, who brings peace and reigns gloriously, Messiah ben Joseph's role is violent and tragic. His mission begins not with coronation, but with war. He is destined to lead Israel into a climactic battle. This battle is likened to the apocalyptic conflict against Gog and Magog. But victory isn't in his story. According to the Talmud, Sukkah 52a, Ben Joseph's fate is to die in combat. But here is the twist. He is not dying as a failure, but as a sacred sacrifice. In some texts, they say that his death serves as atonement for Israel's sins. In others, his death is branded as part of a cosmic strategy, one that clears the spiritual path for Ben David to arrive. This isn't the kind of Messiah people were waiting for. Why? It's because this is not glory, it's blood. However, in Jewish mysticism, suffering isn't defeat. It's the beginning of redemption. And in that suffering servant role, Messiah Ben Joseph became terrifyingly holy. The good part? Ben Joseph's death does not go unnoticed. From biblical scripture, Zechariah 12:10 is frequently quoted by rabbinic sources. The verse describes a nation mourning the one they have pierced. Ancient rabbis applied this verse to Messiah Ben Joseph, interpreting it as a prophecy of his fall. His death causes not just public grief, but heavenly alarm. If we are to dive into more mystical traditions, Ben Joseph's sacrifice sends ripples through the divine realms. His death cleanses collective guilt, rattles the heavens, and shakes the foundations of evil. To portray his role better, the Zohar suggests that his mission is to absorb judgment into himself, clearing the way for Ben David to bring peace. Without him, final redemption could not begin. But still, his name is barely known. But where did the talks of this first Messiah begin? The idea of Messiah Ben Joseph didn't appear overnight. It grew from the cracks of ancient Judaism. During the Second Temple period, Jewish writings were filled with apocalyptic expectations, priestly tensions, and national trauma. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, texts describe two messianic figures. One is priestly and the other royal. In the Rule of the Community and Testimonia, scholars have noted references to a Messiah of Aaron and a Messiah of Israel, both expected to appear at the end of days. While these texts don't name Ben Joseph directly, their framework lays the foundation. A suffering, battle-bound Messiah from Joseph's line fits this pattern. It doesn't end there. To the Qumran sect, messianic redemption would be multi-staged, not singular. It would begin with judgment, suffering, and preparation before the second Messiah comes. What does this tell us? It means that Messiah Ben Joseph wasn't invented later. He was already being expected. However, the deeper you dig, the older his shadow becomes. Most Bible scholars like to believe a jaw-breaking idea. They believe the servant songs in Isaiah, especially Isaiah 53, contain the earliest hints of a suffering messianic figure. He is despised and rejected, pierced for our transgressions. While mainstream Judaism later applied this to Israel collectively, early interpreters saw it as individual. Also, Zechariah 12 and Daniel 9 speak of a figure cut off before victory. It gets more interesting. Do you remember the Book of Enoch? Although the book is often linked with Second Temple mysticism, it also describes a pre-Redeemer figure cast in sorrow and sacrifice. When you put the pieces of text together, these scattered fragments show us that Jewish apocalyptic thought always expected a Messiah who would die first, before redemption could unfold. But surprisingly, later theology focused on kingship and glory. Before this rewritten version came to light, the first outlines of the Messiah were drawn in blood. Messiah Ben Joseph had been etched into the blueprint of Jewish redemption from the very beginning. By now, you understand the story. Messiah Ben Joseph came to suffer and prepare the path for the second Messiah. But which battle did he have to fight and die in to complete his mission? Enter the battle against Gog and Magog. In Jewish eschatology, the end of the world doesn't come quietly. It arrives with war, an all-consuming conflict. This war is known as the battle against Gog and Magog. This apocalyptic war is no minor detail. It's the very moment Messiah ben Joseph was born for. According to Talmud Sukkah 52a and other ancient texts, Ben Joseph leads the armies of Israel into this final confrontation. His mission was straightforward: defeat chaos before it engulfs the world. But there's an unfortunate twist. He doesn't survive the battle. If you wonder why, it's because Ben Joseph was prophesied to fall during this war. It was already written that he would be struck down in battle as nations rage and kingdoms collapse. His defeat sets the stage for Ben David's arrival, not as a warrior, but as a redeemer. And this redemption started with Ben Joseph's death on the battlefield. But why must Ben Joseph die? Historians offer an answer. It's because his death is an atonement. Have you heard about the scapegoat in Yom Kippur rituals? Just like that scapegoat or the blood sacrifices of the temple, Ben Joseph's death absorbs collective guilt. His suffering purifies the people, spiritually clearing the debris so that the real age of peace can begin. The Zohar even states that if the people were spiritually prepared, this death may have been averted. But historically, the expectation remains grim. Messiah ben Joseph was meant to fall. His story is often compared to Isaiah's suffering servant, pierced and crushed for others. His end causes mass mourning, echoing Zechariah 12:10. They shall look upon the one they have pierced. So, what happens after his death? Everything happens, because once the warrior fell, the king could finally rise.